Hi, I'm Abby, a founder of Thatch, and this is a deep dive on our custom itineraries services product. So, in this video, I'm going to go over what is a custom itinerary, what are the three custom itinerary levels that we offer at Thatch, how to set up your custom itineraries, and then how to deliver your custom itineraries to your client. Let's start with what is a custom itinerary. A custom itinerary is a trip that you plan directly for a client in response to one of their requests. There are three different levels of custom itineraries that we offer within Thatch. So the level of detail that you're doing for that trip is going to depend on the level that the client purchases. So the three levels are standard, premium, and luxe. And I'm going to go through an example of all three of those levels for the same trip so you can see how each level builds on the prior one. So we're going to start here with the standard itinerary. The request that the client has made is for a 3-day trip to San Francisco. This is the standard itinerary level. That is a itinerary outline and a list of recommended hotels. What we're trying to do is help the client understand roughly how they're going to spend their days so they can understand what part of the city they might want to stay in, or whether they have enough time on their trip, or if there are key things that they're not going to be able to fit in that they might want to add. So you can see day one is focusing on arriving, taking in the art and culture district of the mission. And that's basically what they're going to have time for. So you can see the flight arrives. Here is a series of hotel recommendations. And then in the afternoon, a light suggestion of how they might spend their time in the mission. So looking at some street art, going to see a bookstore, some more street art, and then a few dinner ideas. So it gives you kind of a flavor for how the day might go. Day two, there's a suggestion for a day trip to Marin. This is to get their outdoors fix. So you can see there's a few points mentioned that they can go to, but the detail really isn't filled in between them. Finally, the third day is going to be going out to the beach and seeing art out in the sunset of San Francisco, and including some art stops in Golden Gate Park. As they move up, the next level of service is the premium itinerary. So let's take a look at the same trip through that lens. So in the premium itinerary, there's a lot more detail in the daily itinerary. So you can see here, they landed at SFO just like in the last itinerary, but now there's a lunch recommendation. Then they can pick their various hotels. And then in the afternoon in the mission, there's a coffee shop added. There are a couple additional stores. There's a recommendation for a cocktail, some dinner options, and so forth. So the day trip to Marin again has more detail. So in this case, picking the premium level is really more for a client who wants to know exactly what they're going to do each day. They want like a lot of detail filled in. It doesn't mean they're going to follow this exactly, but they could. That's the end of the premium level. The main distinction between the premium and then the luxe level is that the luxe itinerary also has bookings made on behalf of the client by the service provider. So you'll see as we scroll through this, instead of there being a list of options, we can assume that the seller and the client already had a discussion about which hotel they wanted to stay in, and now this stay has been booked on behalf of the client. And then again, still this detailed daily itinerary. So this is the most robust itinerary that we have. As we talk about, for example, dinner reservations, you can see there's a 7 p.m. reservation, and we've given the name of the traveler. As we get to the bottom, there's a couple of other pieces to point out on this one. So here is a list of confirmation numbers. One of the ways that I recommend sharing confirmations, in addition to sharing the specific confirmation numbers, it can be nice to take a screenshot or download a PDF of the confirmations, upload that to a Google Drive or something like that, and then link that directly in the itinerary so that the client can always jump out and see the confirmation numbers printed from the actual restaurant or the hotel. And that way they can show that at the front desk if they have trouble. I've also included this thank you section here as an example. This is really a sign off from me as the seller. It's a reminder that on trip support is not included in this particular itinerary. That's not a part of the Luxe service. So the clients are going to manage their own hotel reservations and restaurant reservations if they want to change it, they want to stay an extra night somewhere else. And it's nice to sometimes just remind them right there in the guide. And then there's also an invitation for them to tag me as the seller on their social posts, which is great for me to be able to repost about this and share the fact that I've planned this trip and maybe find additional clients. And then another way for me to find additional clients is asking for my clients to recommend me to their friends and their family if they had a good experience. All three of these examples are linked in our Seller Resources Center, and that will also be linked beneath the video. So To set these up quickly, we'll hop to the services manager. This is the same as all other services. In this case, this is called Custom Itinerary. So we'll go jump into that one. You'll give a good description of the service, why someone would book with you. And the main thing that's different here is you actually get to choose which package you want to offer. In this case, we don't think everyone is going to want to book for people. Not everyone may even want to do the detailed daily itinerary. So totally up to you. In this case, I've picked standard and premium, but I've not selected Luxe, so I won't be offering that. I've set my price per day planned and how many days it will take me to deliver this to the client once they place the order. So price per day, the reason it's broken out that way, somebody might have a 10-day trip, but they only actually need help planning 5 days of it. Maybe they're going to the beach. The other 5 days, they know they're just going to sit by the beach. When they purchase, they will just select the number of days that they want. That'll multiply by your price per day, and that'll give the total that they will pay. At checkout, we always collect a 50% deposit upfront, and then the client will pay the additional 50% when you deliver the guide, and I'll show you how to do that. Next, you'll add your questions. Great to ask some detailed questions here. Try to limit the number, get everything you need without going overboard because they will need to answer these questions before they check out, and you don't want to ask so many questions that they drop off. One note about the questions here, you can't rearrange these once you add them. So you might want to brainstorm your questions off to the side in a notepad or something like that, and then put them in here when you are ready to add them. That's how you save and publish. So once you get an order, you'll get an email. It will have the answer to all the questions. It will have the service that they purchase. It will have the information about the 50% deposit that they put down, and it will have their email. Once you have that information, what you will do is create a guide specifically for that trip. You will title that for the client. You'll want to come up with a good naming mechanism so you can tell all of your client guides apart. And you can also use the description area to give some of that information if you'd like to. Then you'll tap in here and you will start planning the itinerary. For an itinerary, we always recommend that you can use the headers to break out things like day one. I always like to put a divider after headers because I think it looks nice. And then after you've put all those days, you might also maybe put at the end another header that says, accommodations options perhaps. And then you can list out your the hotels that you recommend under there as well. And the hotels, you'll want to always check as you're adding hotels that you have the check prices option there so that those are commissionable for you. So let me do the Hotel Kabuki. So you can see that check prices button is right there. That's going to link out to booking.com. That's how you know it's commissionable. And especially for these custom itineraries, it's really highly likely that they're going to book one of your recommendations. So you don't want to miss out on that commissionable opportunity. And of course, if a hotel is not available on booking.com, you should still include that. That's in the best interest of the client. So you really want to give them the best experience, and the commissions will come as you're continuing to service more customers. When you're done, you'll double check that it's saved, and then you don't need to press publish. You're going to copy the share link, but when you deliver the final itinerary, you are going to want to have the other 50% of the payment that you're owed that you're going to add at the end. So these custom itineraries typically have a revision included. So when you send it the first time, you'll probably send it without a paywall. You guys can workshop the itinerary, and then when the client is satisfied, they've seen it, they know exactly what they're getting, then you can add the paywall in, and the copy they have will have that paywall show up. They won't be able to see the details until they pay. The paywall will show up even if the guide is unpublished, and it will also show up even if the client already has the itinerary. The other reason that we also leave that second payment to come through from you is that you guys might make some changes to the original details of the itinerary during the planning process. So maybe they paid you up front for 3 days, but then they found a really great flight that had them in San Francisco for 5 days instead of 3. So now there's 2 more days that you're planning. Now you can add those 2 days to the final amount that you're putting on the paywall at the end. There are a lot of questions that I get around bookings. We have an entire document that documents how to do bookings on behalf of clients. So I will link that in the description below and you can go check that out. Thank you so much for your time, and check back for the other videos in this series about curated recommendations and consultation calls. That's all for now.